Welcome to Disrupting Distribution, the podcast that delves deep into the telecom hardware distribution industry, exploring the ever-evolving landscape, uncovering emerging industry impacts, discussing key trends, and exposing the often untold secrets of manufacturing and distribution. I'm your host, Stephanie Benzik, the Senior Director of Marketing with Greenstar Marketing, and I'm joined today by Chris Turcott, VP of NTS Direct, and Daniel Narotsky, the CTO of Teledynamics. Thanks, guys. Welcome.
Thanks for having us, Steph.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, let's get into it. First off, why should any service provider care about a distributor and the supply chain in general?
Well, I mean, it just comes down to partnerships, relationships, knowing who you're working with. I think the closer the relationship you have with anyone you're working with, it doesn't really matter the industry. I think you're going to have a tighter knit bond formed, and you'll get a little bit better service down the road. So that's kind of the first and foremost that I believe on any relationship.
Yeah, it's a great point. When I'm talking to our sales team and our marketing team, I remind everybody that distributors should be treated as trusted advisors, right? We're bridging the gap between the manufacturer and the end user, essentially, right? By leveraging resellers. So, as a trusted advisor, we're bringing new products to the table. We're providing, an education on these new products, where they fit in the customer's day-to-day business, and really just helping them embrace the changes of technology on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, Chris. I mean, a lot of times as a trusted advisor, people they're calling in and they're asking not for a product, they're asking for a solution to their problem. And so as a trusted advisor, you could pick from a number of different pieces of hardware to make that work for them. But by actually developing that relationship and understanding what that need is, you can build and design an entire solution around that need. Hardware out the window, it doesn't even matter at that point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When people ask, why NTS Direct or why you just as an individual, right? It really comes down to understanding what the customer's goal is. To your point, Dan, it's not just about the product anymore, right? Let's sit down, let's think about this, let's go through what you're in it, trying to achieve. And you know what? I'm going to bring in a team behind me, whether it be with the manufacturers or the platform providers, and we're going to sit here, have a roundtable, and discuss exactly how to accomplish the goal you're looking to achieve. So, the distributor really is the piece that connects all of that together and makes life much easier for the reseller or the end user to, again, achieve their ultimate goal.
Yeah. And it's kind of leveraging multiplicity, if you will. As an integrator or an installer, you have your niche, you have the installs that you've been on, but you can leverage distributors where we have thousands or tens of thousands of integrators across the country that have leveraged similar or maybe even different kind of installs that you want to hear from. And not just us, even the manufacturers put out white papers that they've passed down to us. So yeah, I mean, you can definitely leverage distribution and what we know through our channels to kind of help you build your solution to that end consumer.
So do you guys kind of know like what's coming up before everyone else does?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most of the time up to a year in advance, right?
Wow.
So, the manufacturer is going to have their January meetings, right? Their Q1 meetings, and they're going to provide a roadmap of all the products that they've been working on with a set schedule of when they plan to launch the product, when it's available in distribution. So distributors oftentimes have the ability to impact how those products are released to the market, when, and any changes that are needed in the meantime, right, to enhance the product. Manufacturers oftentimes are listening to the distributors to get that feedback.
Yeah,
So
agreed. Yeah, they'll even include us in some of their alpha and beta testing. So we're first in line to kind of tell them what some of the features that we've heard through our direct support channels and things are that needed to be added to those. So yeah, I agree with everything Chris has said. We usually see things well in advance of when they actually launch.
Even beyond the actual PDF, the roadmap, the year prior, right, we'll have our bi-weekly and monthly meetings with all of the manufacturers, and they're always trying to get a pulse on what the market's saying, what the market's doing, right? Trends are huge, or they're so important to the manufacturer. They're trying to either capitalize on a trend, right, or they're trying to create a trend. And a lot of that data starts with the distributor and what they're seeing.
Yep, agreed.
Interesting. So that feedback loop, once you have that relationship with the service provider, you're capturing that data and then feeding it back to the manufacturers.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, with respect to privacy acts and things, still, we're not passing everything back, telling them which integrator and customer's doing what, but to that point, when you have a really great relationship and you have some integrators and ISPs that really can help you understand what they're seeing, you can take that and pass that upstream to the manufacturer so that their voice is heard. Because a lot of times that's usually what we hear is saying, how do I know that what I need is being relayed, and that's it. I mean, the better the relationships, the closer we work with our partners in distribution, we can pass that knowledge back upstream until products are being made and designed specifically to either verticals or those different pulses that are going on cyclically. That maybe it's a new fad or a new trend that none of us in distribution or manufacturers thought of, but because we talked about it with one of those key partners, that's how products are made.
Yeah, that's a great point. Obviously, with the larger service providers or enterprise accounts, there are NDAs in place. But that being said, every large opportunity that I've ever worked on, the service providers welcome input from the manufacturer, right? Again, we are the bridge to the manufacturer. So 9 times out of 10, we're sitting down and we're having these conversations about how that product can be enhanced and what that specific service provider is looking for in this solution. Because a lot of times these manufacturers can tailor the product or the software to the service provider's needs specifically, right? And so I've had numerous opportunities where that was the case. So, we can talk about, opportunities a little bit later here because I know it's something that we're probably going to talk about. But, there are times where I've had conversations with service providers about a product that's coming out in 10 to 14 months. And the manufacturer literally changed the way that product was going to be built specifically for that service provider. And it led to one of the largest deals that manufacturer has had in North America. So.
Yeah. And then just to add on to that, it's great when you have a huge deal, a large ISP. Obviously, those customers know their voices will be heard because a lot of times they have a direct manufacturer rep that they're working with as well. But just to close that initial question of why work with distribution, every voice gets heard. So we take everything from the largest customer to the smallest customer and compile a list of all these feature asks and requests and whatever it may be, and we bring those back into those manufacturer discussions. So I think that's another point. I know a lot of people are always talking about size and how large those deals are, but when it comes to things like that, the relationship with the distributor gets that voice heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense. How does the relationship with the distributor and the service provider and the manufacturer affect like the actual supply chain? And I know obviously the pandemic hit the supply chain really hard, and you guys took it like bosses. So how does this relationship really affect the supply chain and being prepared for those cyclical changes?
That's a great question. When you have a close relationship with your customer and you're listening to what their direct needs are, and you understand the impact that a situation like COVID or product disruptions would have on their day-to-day business, that distributor is going to go above and beyond to make sure that even though there are disruptions in the channel, that ISP or service provider is going to have the product they need. So, obviously we ran into this a few times with the larger service providers through COVID. And, we would basically floor plan the product for them, right? So instead of, bringing in, um, you know, eh, 30, 45 days of supply, we would be ordering, 5, 10, 15,000 phones, bringing them in so we could guarantee that product is there when it is needed and then drop ship the pallets on an as needed basis, right? So floor planning was critical uh, throughout the COVID and the product shortages.
Yeah, supply chain in general has really had a focus that you've had to play on it. I would say if we look previous to COVID, everyone expected distribution just to have stock, just readily available, just kind of sitting in there. With COVID, the distributors that could kind of look ahead and see some of the things that were either high run rates or immediate needs, we kind of saw that ahead of time and took place to make sure that our stock was, like Chris said, it was more than just a typical 30-day, 60-day window. But through COVID and through the supply chain shortages, you've now had customers, whether they're large ISPs or even regional ISPs, not stocking as much in their own warehouses and pushing that back into distribution almost like it was 20 years ago. So it's kind of gone through the cycle of distributors stocked and integrators, installers bought, and then integrators, installers had their own warehouses, and now it's kind of going back into distributors have that stock. But the other underlying issue, I think, in today is we've kind of moved through that COVID part. Now we're dealing with high interest rates and debt that's making it a lot harder for the consumer to go and get their order into the installer. And then some of the installers, maybe some of those ISPs are having some of their issues of their own. And so it's really bringing it back into that supply house that the warehouses, the distributors are really having that front load of, hey, we're the ones keeping this cycle going. And so that's kind of where I'm looking at the future, the next 12, 24 months. So supply chain matters, even when it's not something we can control in the financial world.
Yep. It's a great point.
It makes sense. Really shows how much you can help, your partners adapt and stay relevant.
Yep.
I know you can't really talk specifics, but anything in mind that kind of where you were really able to help, one of your partners really deliver when they were in a bind?
Yeah, I mean, I brought up an opportunity earlier about floor planning for a customer, but there was another customer where, they, for the past almost decade, were standardized on a specific product. That product, unfortunately, was one of the brands that really fell flat throughout the pandemic and had serious product constraints. And they just weren't able to pump out enough of their stuff to fulfill the needs of this longtime customer. So, as a distributor, as a trusted advisor, we got to work. We were able to propose a new product line that was similar to what they were using in years past. We made sure we went and brought the manufacturer into it. We've got all the testing done. We had, everything was just gone through, and we ended up displacing the incumbent manufacturer. And now today, 2 years after COVID, right, they're now completely, a little bit more, I guess they're agile, right? They're using 3 different brands, but they've moved primarily to the brand that we proposed. And now they're doing millions of dollars in business with that brand. And that was all because of supply chain issues, right? So they just shifted gears. Excuse me.
Yeah, and I think I could echo and have a number of stories similar to that, because I know Chris doesn't have just one. We have numbers of those that happened through COVID, but taking a different approach, instead of the hardware approach, let's look at that relationship approach. We've had customers that have been around since the analog days that we've, as their trusted advisor, explained to them how they could migrate through the analog and digital PBXs and key systems into hosted voice. And so we've had a couple of customers help them build some of their largest national brands on hosted voice, and then even through that, continuing to educate them on how do they add the next piece of UCAS to their offering. So, I'm not a software distributor. I'm not out there selling services, but I do know that some of these large ISPs, some of them even white labeled ones, are customers of ours, and they use us through distribution. So why not give what they're doing to the rest of our channel, saying, hey, you really ought to add these services to your book of business, and really grow that channel. And so we've seen a lot of large growth that way, just being a trusted advisor, saying, hey, you're already in these verticals, or you're already in these kind of fields, why not add these services as well? And so, not even hardware related, but we know that the circle comes all the way around, and it comes
Sure
back to,
does.
because we got them to add more to their services, we're
Yeah.
getting more hardware sales out of it. So
Yep.
that's a great another analogy that we've had large growth from, and it really wasn't because of a shortage, but it was that relationship.
That's awesome.
And
It really
it's
is.
a great point. I mean, through COVID, listen, this is a small industry, right? It's telco, communications, UCaaS. It seems so big, right? It seems endless, but it's not.
No.
And it was an opportunity for a lot of, partners to really come together and start providing enhanced solutions by leveraging some of our hosted partners and helping them, promote their product with other, partners that we have, and really created this network of opportunity for everybody in this space. And we've seen a lot of that over the years. There's been solutions that really came out of nowhere that really started throughout COVID that we've really stuck with and standardized on going forward. And a lot of that was from some of our existing partners where we were just slinging hardware for them, and it turned into something much bigger. And now I see it as the future of our company. So really exciting stuff throughout COVID, as far as people stepping up, products stepping up, and distribution really just getting their hands dirty and making sure everybody had what they needed when they needed it. It was definitely a huge learning curve, I think, for everybody involved, but we're all better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how has kind of this huge, I don't know if you guys were affected, but how has remote work kind of affected the distribution industry, if at all?
No, it's definitely had an impact. I think if we just look at the industry first before we start talking about how it affected us personally, but the industry has been looking for something that would push the needle and drive the accelerated growth in our industry, and COVID did that, because every industry is impacted. Every industry needed communications. Communications was actually part of what the government deemed as an essential job for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a lot in the larger cities where Teledynamics is located there and NTS is located. We were allowed to get out and move around because we were part of
Yeah.
that integral communications workforce. So the migration to working from home, everybody immediately needed, in the early, late 2019, 2020, everybody needed a headset or a small personal speakerphone or something there to
Yeah.
just initially get from home. And it continued to grow to, okay, now we're needing the SIP endpoints and phones, to cameras, to whatever. And so it's continued to push that needle and to grow and adopt. And I think on the technology front, it's continued to push what we see. The commercial requests have really come from that residential request. And we want, in the workplace, we want everything to work as easy and simplistic as what we can make work on something we could just buy, from Amazon. And so it's
Right.
kind of really pushed technology to grow in that direction as well. So I kind of wanted to hit that before we started talking about how it affected us personally. But Chris, jump on there. I know you're kind of eager to say something there too.
Yeah, I mean, it changed the way we do business, right? Things, such as like access points and routers and, your network as a whole. A lot of that was sold. through like broadline distribution, right? It wasn't so much the boutique distributors that, specialized in that. And I could speak for our company, we were focused on, desk phones and gateways and really just the day-to-day telco stuff. And through COVID, we really capitalized on the need for network switches, for access points, for routers, for headsets. These are all things that we really weren't doing so much of back in the day, right? So we changed the way we do business, and the manufacturers that we support, they changed the way they do business, right? I mean, Grandstream is a great example, right? Now they are solely focused on their networking products, and they're doing a fantastic job with that GWN series. TP-Link, same thing. They've completely changed their channel and um, made it, more feasible for boutique distributors to actually, sell those um, in volume. And it's been a great experience. But as far as, working from home myself, it's been it's great. Everyone wants to work from home, right? At some point, until you realize, oh wait, my kids are home doing school. Oh wait, my wife is here too working, and you're
Don't forget the
trying to
dogs.
balance all these things.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? And we just got so used to, listening to dogs bark and people, knocking on doors and kids arguing in the background and the guy on the lawnmower in the backyard going by, whatever. So, I think that working from home essentially humanized our business and how we work with our customers, our coworkers, our partners. It's not uncommon to see somebody wearing a backwards hat on a professional call. I mean, I think that COVID really helped that, and I love it. I love the fact that we can just see people for who they are in their environment, and I feel like business has enhanced because of it. I feel like I know my customers better, I know my coworkers better, and it's all because we're comfortable in our environment. So I love the overall, I love the whole working from home element to what's happened in the past couple of years.
I have
Yeah.
to agree. The only thing I really miss is, cakes in the break room. That's it.
Well,
Yeah, well,
two two things, I guess, kind of adding on to that. One, with the work from home, it really, for a lot of people, it opened up the eyes of what uh, the FCC has been trying to push with bringing gig fiber everywhere, to the residencies, into the rural areas of the country. And so that was something that I think caught a lot of people by storm and by surprise. And then, kind of what Chris was talking to, the security of how do you take that same security and bring that home, so you have the same firewalls and securities that you expected
mhm.
at the office now at every individual employee's house. How do you secure those endpoints, those computers, things like that? So that was challenging for a lot of companies, and again, they would turn to us and look at what we could offer there. But to keep it back under the personal element, distributors, people like Chris and me and a lot of our sales group and executive group are working from home. But you've got to remember the personal element of how can we as distributors be so agile and still pump out the products that are needed. We have families and employees that are working in the warehouse still,
Yep,
and without them, Chris and I would be nothing. And so
it's
I
true.
don't want to lose that personal element. Yeah, working from home is great, but there's a handful of our employees that don't have that luxury to work from home because they're working in 100,000 foot warehouse, square foot
Yep.
warehouse, just pumping out product daily. So we got to remember those guys, that they really make us who we are and they make us look good.
And they stayed home. They were in the warehouse the
Yeah,
entire time. The
yeah,
entire time. We had to reconfigure the entire warehouse so everything was, the appropriate distance apart, and, all of the, you know, masks and sanitizer and ventilation and everything that we had to um, configure just to make it as safe as humanly possible
yeah,
during those times. But we didn't shut down. To Dan's point earlier, we were essential,
yeah,
and we had, 50 to 80 people going into the warehouse every single day and just keeping business as usual. And we never slowed down. We kept distributing product throughout the entire COVID era. So
Yep.
hats off to those guys because they really, really stepped up. And um, Dan's correct. I wouldn't be where I am today. And we, as a company, as friends, wouldn't be where we are today if it weren't for them. So,
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present. What's the future hold for this industry? What do you think?
it's a great question.
Yeah, it's something that I think Chris and I have sat around at trade shows and events, and we've kind of scratched our head at it, looking at it. Distribution, if you really want to get down to what distribution is I've heard it said we sell buggy whips. Um, Buggies don't exist anymore, therefore buggy whips don't exist anymore either. But we're always having to keep our eye on that next buggy whip. What is the next thing that we're going to have to deploy to the masses? And so looking at that right now, I think kind of like what I was talking about earlier. You've seen the different services that are added, that the integrators and installers and ISPs are adding into their book of business. And so as those things continue to merge and they continue to adapt, I think we're looking more at making video more of a transparent part of voice, where you just kind of be separate. You'd have a voice segment and a video segment, but a lot of these national players now are doing all of it. Where 10 years ago they were two separate companies. But now it's the same company doing both. And so I think we're going to see that trend. We're going to see that UCaaS trend merge everybody together, and that's going to help change technology.
Yeah, it really simplifies it, right? I think you're going to see less product, like physical products on desks and in office rooms. I think a lot of this stuff is going to be, condensed into, software, different, just everything's smaller, right? Brighter and smaller. Video has been amazing for us since COVID. You look at all of our partners today, they're really focused on door access control video. They're focused on Teams rooms, Zoom rooms, those two names right there, Teams and Zoom, right? Took off through COVID. So, you're going to see a lot more acquisitions of, video companies. And it's just, we've kind of seen this the past couple of years. And, I suspect we'll be teleporting soon, right? In the next 10 years through a Zoom phone, who knows, right? I mean, you've got AI here around the corner, right? Or it's here, but obviously that continues to change on a day to day. I know, Dan, you've really been interested in the whole AI gig.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of growth you can get out of AI. There's a lot of ways you can use it. How we're trying to use it in distribution, and not just in our warehouse, but even in our tech support groups and our knowledge base groups. So yeah, the technology is going to continue to advance.
Yeah.
We're keeping a close eye on AI. But even that, with looking at how products are changing, and it's moving kind of into a software mold. Distribution is still going to have to be a key player in whatever it is, whether it's software, hardware, a little bit of both. And so kind of what I'm seeing too is the future continues to evolve right in front of us. This goes back to that first question of how are we relaying what the customers are needing, what the industry is needing, and having that developed for those purposes. One of the things that I thought was kind of neat that stuck around because of COVID, Chris mentioned it. It sparked a memory of a conversation I had last week. Door access control, right? It used to be a kind of a physical thing. You'd either type in something on a keypad. Maybe you were lucky enough to have a fob and you could wave it in front of it to get in. But now, I mean, I've seen so much on the software go into these door access controls where you just wave in front of it.
Yep.
So it's really taken that contactless piece that COVID was really strong about. Hey, we want everything contactless, and it's stuff that's carried over to today. And so those are things that I continue to see moving forward with sensors and the Internet of Things. I think that would be probably the biggest future that I see coming into hardware.
Yeah. And then just from a business perspective, I see, I'm not so much into the tech side of the world, right? I'm more in business and marketing. So I see AI completely changing the way we do business, from a marketing perspective, from, qualifying the right sales rep. And, pretty soon you're going to just, your interviews will, ultimately be done through AI, right? You find out real quick if someone's qualified for the role you're looking for or whatnot. If you need content, for your next go-to-market strategy, AI can assist with that, right? So I'm totally excited to see where that takes this industry. Obviously, us being the forefront of communications, that AI is going to impact this industry the most and the soonest, right? So it's going to be interesting to see where that takes us all. And I think the question of what's next is exciting, right?
Yeah.
And it's changed so much in the past few years. So what is next? And I
Yeah.
can't wait to be a part of it.
I mean, we're seeing some of it right now. The video, seeing what different AI features can be put into video right now with different tracking modes and cameras. Used to be you were pretty cool if your camera could just pan, tilt, and zoom automatically. I think we're years past that. Now it can follow you around based on your silhouette. It can track your voice dynamics. So
Yeah.
the three of us could all be in one room, but a camera could track, because of microphone algorithms, it could track my voice versus your two voices. So things like that we're seeing already that we're living into. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Which opens up the door to security at another level, right? So it just keeps rinse, repeat, right? You've got these new features, this new functionality, but oh wait, how do we protect ourselves? So it's just constant going back and forth, and that really it creates opportunity for all of us, and so. Again, I'm really excited to see where it takes us. It's kind of scary that a device can track me from and not even see me and just know my voice from another room, etc. Whether it be body heat or voice. That's kind of crazy. But
I have to agree, but
it's
as
here.
digital as we get, there's still this physical world. So
Yes.
again, you guys will adapt. Service providers will adapt. We all will.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of the same thing. Like I was saying, it's being pushed from that retail environment where everybody's used to yelling, "Hey Alexa" or "Hey Siri" or "Hey Google" or what have you, and from there it just goes into, "Hey, I want that in business," and so we push it and try to adapt and integrate. And then, as Chris said, that now we look at security, and so security is kind of one of those. Oh yeah, let's make sure that works too. And it's not always the last idea, but the last thought, but it definitely makes you reconsider everything on your security levels.
100%. 100%. Just really an example of it will continue to evolve, right? No matter what comes out as far as technology, there's always going to be 1,000 other companies that are going to, get established just to support that certain technology, and that's where opportunity arises. And we've seen that with hosted, VoIP and UCaaS and CCaaS. We've seen how that impacts our day to day. And so, again, I look forward to see what other opportunities arise from AI going forward.
All right, we got all the technical stuff out of the way. I kind of want to see personally, in the business, what has your distributor been involved with that was really positive and has kind of really stuck with you?
Oh man, it's trying to be careful on the line that we walk, but don't want to speak too much on privacy stuff. But I think the customers that we've really worked with on their needs, whether it was supply chain related or even some of these requests on bids that they're working on. I think some of the things that really I think have been most impactful are the ones that we've taken an information, a request, a question maybe, and really turned it into an entire new business for them. And I don't want to jump too much on what that looks like, but there's been so many different examples where just a question has come in from a customer that really wasn't, it definitely wasn't even in their vertical, and they'd come in and say, "Hey, I've got this chance to look at changing this one thing out for a customer of theirs," and we'll talk it out and we'll kind of snowball it for a couple of days, and then you'll get a week or a month or two later, they'll come back and say, hey, remember that thing we were talking about? Okay, now I've got 7,000 sites to deploy this into, when it was something they were just looking at a one or two off. And to me, those are the things that are pretty cool, because it's something that you're just kind of spitballing ideas. You're not really trying to plan a 7,000 site install or even a 700 site install. It's just, to me, that those are the things that I get involved with on day-to-day conversations. And my world is different than Chris. I'm on the technology side as a CTO, so I'm dealing with trouble tickets and support options and installation issues. And so those are things to me that I think is pretty cool. You'll get involved on some of these phone calls that you're just trying to think of a one-off, but it turns into something way bigger than that.
Yeah, no doubt. And, on my side of the house, listen, I am so proud of how my company went through COVID. The fact that we kept everybody healthy, we kept everybody busy. We made sure, everyone got their bills paid, which, is obviously the most important thing from my seat. And we continued to assist our customers at a high level. And that to me, was critical. Those are the things that I lay down at night and make sure that my T's are crossed and my I's are dotted. And we also, we've had other obstacles, right? We had a fire at my facility in April, and this really crappy event united my company in a way that I don't think I've ever seen professionally, right? Everybody banded together. We moved operations to other sides of the campus and hallways, triage this whole situation. And again, we never shut down, right? We kept business going. Our customers, some of them today don't even know we had a fire, right? And it's like, that's how, the level that we are at to protect our company and everyone else's around us, our partners. So, I'm just so proud of what we've been able to accomplish in 3 years, 4 years. I'm really proud of, our competitors and friends like Dan, and I know they've had similar situations throughout COVID. It was a challenge. And as leaders, there's a lot of pressure on you to make sure that thousands of people remain supported at the highest level. And we did that. We did that. And so, I've got some great relationships that came out of all these things, new friends, new partners, and I just couldn't be more happy with where we are as a company today, in this entire space, from internal friends and family and all the way out to our competitors and friends down in Texas. I'm proud of everybody. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been so much strength and unity. We saw this a couple of years ago that competitors now are having to work together. A lot of our customers might have a competitor right down the street from them, but all the different mergers and acquisitions and services that have now come under one roof, you see competitors that are now working together to make solutions happen for that end customer. And it's really no different in Chris and my world. I've known Chris a long time. We're good friends. I love catching up with him at trade shows, but yeah, we might be competitors, but we've really had to work together to make some things happen. We'll have an ISP that'll call us up and drain both of us of our stock, and we'll call each other, work together to go, okay, we know what their full bid is. We need to make sure that we take care of that customer, but we need to take care of each other too, because we don't want to have both of us being out to have all the rest of our other customers now leave us because we don't have stock. So it really. Yeah, we're competitors, but we really have to work together on a lot of these things that are going on in our supply chain and industry. And so that's something that I think I'd love to echo. And Chris, there's a lot of good stuff working with you guys and working with NTS over there, and even stuff with you guys. We've done some stuff with you guys to make sure that we have these relationships that keep us working together. And so lots come out of it.
No doubt. I
That's
mean,
what
I
it comes
gotta
down
I gotta
to.
shout out Green Star Marketing, right? A little plug.
Yeah.
Again, that's something else that we were able to bring in house throughout some of these tough times where we had resource issues, right? And everybody was wearing 15 hats, and we obviously leverage Green Star Marketing as our marketing firm, and really they've assisted us in growing our company significantly through some of the toughest times we've had. And so there's the Green Star plug. We appreciate you, Steph. We love you guys, and you've done a lot for us. So.
Well, you guys are absolutely right. It all comes back to the relationship. So
Yep.
I think that was a nice little tie-in back to the very beginning.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Get
Well,
all
guys, we're
emotional.
actually out of time, so I'm gonna call it here. Thank you very much for the plug and for coming on. I think it's gonna be great. So we'll catch up at the next show.
All right. It was great talking with you guys.
Yep.
Check
See
you
you guys
later.
soon.
All right. Bye.